Imagine clearing a house in the dead of night, your NVGs painting everything in shades of green, the only sound your own breathing and the distant pop of suppressed rounds. You've trained for this. Urban combat, mount, room-to-room fighting. But then, in the silence after the last insurgent drops, you hear it. Footsteps behind you. Not from your squad, not from the street. From deeper in the building, where no one should be. That's the kind of story we're diving into today. Back in November 2004, during Operation Phantom Fury, the Second Battle of Fallujah, U.S. Marines pushed into one of the most hostile urban environments American forces had faced since Vietnam. Fallujah, in Iraq's Al-Anbar province, had become a stronghold for insurgents, foreign fighters, and al-Qaeda affiliates. The city was laced with IEDs, booby-trapped houses, and underground tunnel networks used to move fighters and weapons unseen. Historically, Fallujah sits along the Euphrates River, a crossroads for centuries. But in 2004, it was a war zone. Over 10,000 U.S. troops, primarily Marines from the 1st Marine Division, along with Army and Iraqi forces, cordoned off the city and went block by block, house by house. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters, no room for error. Casualties were high on both sides. What doesn't get talked about as much are the stories that came out afterward. Marines returning to forward operating bases like Camp Baharia, also called Dreamland, a former Ba'athist resort just outside the city limits, started sharing accounts that went beyond the usual combat stress. Whispers in empty barracks, shadows moving in peripheral vision, and worst of all, the feeling that something had followed them out of those tunnels. These aren't urban legends pulled from thin air. They're first-hand testimonies from Marines who were there. Grunts, squad leaders, corpsmen, who've only shared them years later, often anonymously or in small circles. I've researched official reports, veteran forums, and direct accounts to piece this together. No embellishment for clicks, just the facts as they were told, with the respect these men deserve. Tonight, we're focusing on one platoon from 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. They entered a tunnel network that was unnaturally silent, and whatever was down there didn't stay behind. Chapter 1. The Push into the Jolan District. My name is Sergeant Alex Ramirez. I was a squad leader with 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. We were deep into Operation Phantom Fury, clearing the northwest sector of Fallujah, the Jolan District. That part of the city was a fortress for the insurgents. Narrow alleys, compounds stacked on top of each other, every rooftop a potential fighting position, every doorway a possible trap. We moved house to house, methodical, the way we'd drilled it 100 times back in the States. Stack on the door, flash bang in, flow through the breach, clear each room with precision. By this point, we had already cleared dozens of structures. Most were abandoned, furniture overturned, family photos still hanging crooked on the walls. Others were rigged, pressure plates under prayer rugs, wires running to washing machines packed with explosives. You learned to read the signs quick, or you didn't last long. This one house stood out. It was a solid 2-story concrete block tucked against a mosque complex. Intel had flagged it as a possible command node. Maps, radios, maybe high-value targets inside. We hit it at dusk. The sky bruised purple. The call to prayer long silent. Lance Corporal Hayes was on point. "I got the breach," he said, voice low over the squad net. "Go," I answered. He kicked the metal door hard. It gave with a screech. Flashbang sailed in, the concussion thumping in our chests even before the light died. We poured through, me right behind Hayes, then Morrison Lee and Doc Ramirez bringing up the rear. Ground floor was empty. Kitchen stripped, cupboards hanging open, living room furniture shredded by previous airstrikes. We cleared it fast, then found the stairs leading down. The basement door was heavier than the rest. Reinforced steel, padlock shot off earlier by the lead element. When we pushed through, the air changed. Cooler, damp. The smell hit us. Wet earth mixed with something sharp, metallic, like old blood baked into the concrete. That was when we found the tunnels. They weren't some hasty spider hole. These were engineered, hand-dug, but reinforced with timber beams, narrow enough that we had to turn sideways with our kit, wide enough for a man to move weapons and ammo through. Branches ran east and west, disappearing into blackness. Classic rat lines. Lieutenant Harlan's voice crackled in my ear. "Ramirez, take your fire team left tunnel. I'll take right. Mark anything you find and keep comms tight." "Roger." We flipped NVGs down. The world turned green and grainy. Hayes took point. I followed, then Morrison and Lee. The tunnel floor was packed dirt, uneven. Every step raised a faint puff of dust that hung in the air like smoke. We moved slow, rifles up, thumbs on selectors. The silence was total. No dripping water, no rats, no distant echoes of the fight topside. Just our breathing and the soft scuff of boots. 20 meters in, Hayes stopped dead. "Sarge," he whispered, "you hear that?" I froze. Listened. Nothing. "Negative. Keep eyes forward." But he wasn't wrong. A few more steps, and the hair on my neck stood up. A cold draft brushed the back of my legs like someone had opened a door behind me. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps. Not the crunch of boots on dirt. Bare feet. Padding. Morrison turned. "Contact rear." We all spun, muzzles tracking. Darkness. Empty tunnel stretching back the way we came. "Eyes front," I ordered. "Stay sharp." We pressed on. The tunnel widened into a small chamber. There it was. The cache. Crates of AKs. Belts of 7.62. RPG warheads. Stacked neat. Detonators in foam cases. We marked it with chem lights for EOD to handle later, but the feeling never left. Like eyes on the back of your neck. Like something walking just outside the edge of your light. Hayes kept glancing over his shoulder. Morrison's breathing was getting faster. Even Lee, who never rattled, had his saw gripped white-knuckle tight. We finished marking the cache and started the exfil. Same route back. The silence felt heavier now, pressing in. Every shadow seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at it. When we finally climbed out of the basement and into the fading light, the relief was physical. Fresh air, open sky, the familiar crack of outgoing fire in the distance. We blew the tunnel entrance with a shaped charge, collapsed it behind us. Job done. That night, we rotated back to Camp Baharia, Dreamland, the old Ba'athis resort turned FOB. We figured the weirdness was just fatigue, adrenaline dump, the usual tricks your brain plays after too many days without real sleep. I was wrong. Around 0200, I jerked awake in my rack. The bay was quiet, just the low hum of generators outside and the occasional cough from one of the guys. Then I heard it again, those same soft footsteps. In the hallway just beyond our door, I sat up slow. "Who's on fire watch?" No answer. The footsteps stopped right outside, then scratching started. Slow, deliberate, nails dragging down the wooden doorframe. I grabbed my M16, flipped on my red lens headlamp. The hallway was empty, but the next morning Hayes showed me his forearm. 3 long, deep scratches already scabbed over. He swore he hadn't rolled onto anything sharp in his sleep. Morrison wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Said he'd dreamed of glowing eyes watching him from the dark. We told ourselves it was nothing. We were wrong. Whatever had been waiting in that silent tunnel had followed us out, and it wasn't finished with us yet. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Barracks. This is Lance Corporal Tyler Hayes. I was the point man in Sergeant Ramirez's fire team during that push through Jolin. After we collapsed the tunnel and exfilled the house, we rotated back to Camp Baharia for a short stand down. Dreamland, they called it, some old Ba'athis luxury resort turned forward operating base. Palm trees still lined the cracked roads. A man-made lake sat in the center, half drained and choked with trash. The villas that used to host regime loyalists now housed platoons of tired Marines. Our bay was in one of the larger buildings. High ceilings, faded murals of eagles and crossed swords on the walls, marble floors chipped and stained, rows of metal racks, sea bags stuffed underneath, weapons chained to the footlocks. It should have felt like a break from the fight. Instead, it felt wrong from the moment we dropped our kits. First night back, I pulled fire watch from midnight to 0200, sat at the little plywood desk by the door, M16 across my knees, red lens, headlamp on low so I could scan the roster without waking anyone. The generators hummed outside. Distant mortar thumps rolled in from the city every now and then. Normal sounds. Then the whispering started. It was faint at first, easy to mistake for wind through broken windows or one of the guys talking in his sleep. But it kept going, low, rhythmic, almost like chanting. I couldn't make out words, but the cadence was steady, deliberate. Arabic maybe, or something older. I stood up slow, walked the aisle between the racks, checked every Marine, all out cold, mouths open, chests rising and falling. Morrison was snoring loud enough to rattle the windows. Nobody awake. I sat back down. The whispering stopped. I figured I'd imagined it. Too many days on MRE caffeine and no REM sleep. 10 minutes later, it started again. Closer this time, coming from under the racks, like someone lying on the floor, whispering up through the canvas. I flicked on the overhead lights. The bay flooded white. Nothing moved. No one stirred. "Cut it out," I muttered, half expecting one of the guys to start laughing. Silence. I killed the lights, sat down again. The whispering resumed almost immediately. This time I caught a word, or thought I did. My name. Hayes. Soft. Breath against my ear. I spun around. Empty space. I reported it to the duty NCO when he came to relieve me. He gave me that tired look. "Ghosts of Fallujah, boot. You'll hear all kinds of shit out here. Get some rack." I tried. Didn't sleep. The next couple nights it kept happening, not just to me. Morrison woke the whole bay one time, thrashing in his sleeping bag, yelling about hands pressing on his chest. When we got him calmed down, he had bruises, 5 distinct marks across his sternum like fingertips. He swore he hadn't been dreaming about falling or anything that could explain it. Doc checked him out, said it looked like contusions, but couldn't say from what. Suggested sleep deprivation, maybe he'd thrashed into the rack frame. We all knew that was bullshit. We started comparing notes quietly, away from the leadership. Lee said he'd heard the chanting too, thought it was coming from the walls themselves. Ramirez admitted he'd felt cold spots moving through the bay at night, like walking past an open freezer. One evening we were all in the bay, cleaning weapons after a convoy escort. Ramirez was giving us the usual speech about knocking off the ghost stories, keeping our heads in the fight. The overhead fluorescents flickered once, twice. Power surges were common, nothing new. Then every rack in the room started shaking. Not a little tremor, violent. Metal frames rattling against the floor, sea bags sliding, weapons chains clanking. Guys jumped up, rifles in hand, scanning for incoming or some prank. What the hell is this? It lasted maybe 10 seconds, then stopped as suddenly as it started. We checked outside. Dead calm. No wind, no vehicles rolling by, no Artie. Going out. Back inside, nobody said much. We just finished cleaning in silence and hit our racks early. That night, I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to force sleep. The whispering came back, louder than before. This time, it wasn't just chanting. It was names, mine, Morrison's, Lee's, Ramirez's, one after another, slow and deliberate, like someone reading a roster. Then laughter, low, wet, right at the foot of my rack. I sat up fast, grabbed my rifle, flipped the red light. The bay was empty, but scratched into the plaster wall above the door. Fresh gouges still dusting down were symbols. Not Arabic script, not anything any of us recognized. Sharp angles, circles intersecting like something carved in a hurry with fingernails. We stared at it until morning. Whatever we'd walked past in that tunnel hadn't stayed buried when we collapsed the entrance. It had come home with us, and it was starting to speak. Chapter 3. Shadows on Patrol. Corporal Marcus Lee here. I was the automatic rifleman in Sergeant Ramirez's fire team, carrying the M249 saw through those streets and tunnels. After the whispering started in the barracks, and we all saw those scratches on the wall, Command did what they always do, kept us busy. No time to dwell if you're pulling patrols, convoy security, or standing QRF. They figured hard work and exhaustion would burn the nonsense out of our heads. It didn't. We started running dismounted patrols around Camp Baharia's perimeter almost every day. The base sat on the outskirts of Fallujah, surrounded by farmland gone fallow, irrigation ditches choked with reeds, and scattered palm groves. Beyond the wire, it was all dust and potential ambush points. We'd walk the roads, check culverts for IEDs, talk to locals if any showed up, eyes always scanning rooftops and tree lines. One night, we pulled checkpoint duty on the main supply route running past the base. No moon, just starlight and the green glow of NVGs. We set up in a shallow berm, vehicles staggered, fields of fire overlapping. I was in the prone behind my saw, bipod dug in, belt fed and ready. That's when I saw the shadow. It was human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, limbs too long, moving between the HESCO barriers about 200 meters out. Smooth, no hesitation, like it belonged there. Contact, 200 meters moving left to right along the wire. I called out calm over the net. Ramirez swung his rifle up, scanned with his optics. Negative contact. You sure? Positive. Hayes and Morrison glassed it too. Nothing, but I tracked it. It stopped behind a barrier, then turned, straight toward us. No face, just a deeper black where features should be. Then it was gone, like it stepped into nothing. We called for a reaction team, swept the area with lights and dogs from the Army MP unit. Found zero. No footprints in the soft dirt, no heat signature on the thermal, nothing. Back in the barracks, we didn't talk about it much. Everyone was seeing things by then, or feeling them. Cold spots that moved through the bay, like someone walking past you close enough to brush your shoulder. Doors creaking open when the wind was dead calm. One guy from 3rd Platoon swore he woke up to a figure in a white dish dasha standing at the end of his rack, just staring. When he reached for his weapon, it was gone. We started hearing stories from other units too. Marines who'd cleared different tunnels talking about the same silence down there, the same feeling of being followed out. Locals who worked on base, terps, laborers, avoided certain buildings after dark. They'd cross themselves or mutter prayers when passing our villa. One terp finally told Doc that the resort had been built over older ground, places where bad things happened under Saddam. Executions, worse, and that the Jinn liked desolate spots, ruins, tunnels, empty palaces. Most of us laughed it off. We're Marines. We don't do superstitions. But Hayes started sleeping with his K-bar unsheathed under his pillow. Morrison kept a small cross his mom sent him taped to his rack frame. Even Ramirez, who'd shut down any ghost talk before, stopped correcting us. Then came the night that pushed it further. We were all in the bay after chow, boots off, passing around a bootleg DVD someone scored, trying to act normal. Lights were low, just a few red headlamps so the duty wouldn't bitch. The temperature dropped sudden, sharp enough that you could see your breath. Generators didn't hiccup, power stayed steady. Just cold, unnatural cold. Then the shadows started moving, not cast by anything. Independent, peeling off the walls, stretching across the floor toward the racks. Hayes saw it first. "You guys seeing this?" We all froze. The shadows crept closer, pooling under certain racks. Mine, Hayes's, Morrison's, Ramirez's, like fingers reaching. Someone hit the overheads. Lights snapped on, shadows gone, room normal. But on the floor, in the dust that always settled no matter how much we swept, were prints. Bare feet, leading from the door to the center of the bay, then stopping. No one had walked there. We checked the hallway. Empty. Locked from inside. That was the night we stopped pretending it was stress or imagination. Whatever we'd disturbed in that tunnel wasn't content with whispers anymore. It was showing itself. And it was choosing who to follow. Chapter 4. The Figure in the Mirror. Doc Emilio Ramirez here, Navy corpsman attached to the platoon. No relation to Sergeant Ramirez. My job was keeping these guys alive, patching bullet holes, treating heat casualties, handing out Motrin for everything else. I'd seen plenty of combat stress. Guys jumping at shadows, nightmares, the 1,000-yard stare. I figured that's all this was starting to look like when the stories piled up. But then it got personal. By this point, the whole fire team was coming to me off the books. Hayes couldn't sleep more. Then an hour without jerking awake. Morrison kept checking his chest for new bruises that weren't there the day before. Lee was quieter than usual, scanning corners like he expected contact inside the wire. Even Sergeant Ramirez pulled me aside once, asked if I had anything stronger than go pills or no-go pills. I didn't. Hayes came to me first thing one morning after morning chow. He looked like hell, eyes bloodshot, skin gray, shaking a little even though the sun was already cooking the base. "Doc, I saw something." "Slow down." "What exactly?" We were in the aid station, a converted hotel room with cots and medical crates stacked floor to ceiling. I had him sit while I checked vitals, pulse elevated but steady. I was shaving in the head. "You know those big cracked mirrors left over from when this was a resort?" I nodded. The head still had the old vanities, gold-trimmed mirrors spider-webbed from frag or age, sinks that barely worked. I'm scraping my face, half asleep, look up in the mirror, and there's someone standing right behind me. He stopped, swallowed hard, turned around fast. Nothing. Nobody in the head but me. Door was locked from inside. But when I looked back in the mirror, it was still there. Taller than me. Hooded or robed, couldn't tell. No face, just black. But it was smiling. Teeth too wide. I checked his pupils, asked the usual questions. No head trauma, no drugs, no fever. I told him classic stress manifestation, your brain filling in threats where there aren't any. Gave him some melatonin from my personal stash and told him to rack out during standby. But I started paying attention after that. During sick call, I'd catch movement in my peripheral, turn and see nothing. Or I'd feel breathing on the back of my neck while bent over a crate inventorying supplies. Cold breath. Spin around. Empty room. Then Morrison sliced his hand open one night. Came to me bleeding pretty good. Said he'd dropped his K-bar and it landed wrong. I didn't buy it, but I cleaned the cut, butterflied it, wrapped it tight. While I was finishing the bandage, the overhead light flickered, then died. Pitch black. Generator didn't cough. Those things chug steady or not at all. This was instant. Then hands settled on my shoulders. Heavy, ice cold, fingers digging in just enough to hurt. I spun, knocking the stool over, flashlight out. Empty. Morrison was backed against the wall, eyes huge. You felt that too, Doc? Yeah. We got the light back on. Switch hadn't flipped. Just worked again. After that, I started hearing it during rounds. Whispering again, but different now. Not chanting. My name, over and over, mixed with wet clicks, like someone trying to speak without a tongue. We took it up the chain. Lieutenant Harlan listened, stone-faced, then brought in the battalion chaplain. Guy came through with his stole and Bible, did a general blessing, sprinkled holy water, told us to pray and stay. Strong in faith. It quieted down for maybe a day. Guys slept better, no cold spots. Then it came back meaner. A couple of Marines from the platoon started running unexplained fevers, not heat stroke, those we knew how to treat. These were deep chills, vomiting something dark and thick. I sent them to battalion aid, but tests came back negative. Bad chow, they said. We knew it wasn't. One night I was up late restocking when Hayes burst into the aid station barefoot, only PT shorts. It's in the mirrors, Doc. All of them. He dragged me to the head. We stood in front of the biggest cracked vanity. At first, just our reflections. Two exhausted guys lit by red headlamp. Then the glass rippled. Like heat haze. Behind our reflections, the figure appeared. Tall, robed, faceless. Head tilted watching. Hayes grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. It raised a hand. Pointed at us. Then the mirror cracked further. New lines spidering out from where its finger touched the glass. We backed out slow. Didn't turn our backs on it. After that, nobody used those heads at night if they could help it. Whatever we'd brought back wasn't just watching anymore. It was reaching. And it wanted us to see it. Chapter 5. The Exorcism Attempt. Sergeant Alex Ramirez again. By this point, 2 weeks after coming out of that tunnel, the platoon was coming apart at the seams. Guys were barely sleeping, jumping at every shadow, making mistakes on patrols that could get someone killed. Fratricide risk was real. Fingers too twitchy on triggers, eyes playing tricks in the dark. We'd lost the edge that keeps you alive out there. Lieutenant Harlan saw it. He pulled me and the other squad leaders into the CP one evening after chow. The man looked as worn as the rest of us. Deep lines around his eyes, voice rough from too many radios, and not enough rest. Ramirez, he said, your team's hit hardest. What the hell is going on? I laid it out. No bullshit. The tunnel silence, the footsteps, the whispers turning into names, the shadows, the mirrors, all of it. He listened without interrupting, then rubbed his face like he was trying to wipe the story off. I've heard whispers from other platoons too, he admitted. Chaplains getting requests for blessings left and right. He told us he'd arranged something. Not official, nothing that would hit the logs. But the battalion chaplain was coming, along with one of the Iraqi interpreters who knew local customs. A mix of rites, Christian, and whatever the locals used against jinn. We'd do it in our bay after lights out, keep it quiet. That night, we gathered in the bay. Just our platoon. No outsiders except the chaplain and the terp. Guys sat on footlockers or leaned against racks, skeptical but desperate. Weapons stacked in the corner. No need for them here, or so we hoped. The chaplain started with prayer, voice steady, reading from Psalms about protection from evil in the dark. The terp, an older guy, named Ahmed, who'd worked with us since the beginning, burned incense that smelled sharp and herbal, walked the perimeter sprinkling salt and muttering in Arabic. He drew symbols on the doorframe with charcoal, crosses mixed with Arabic script. At first it felt almost normal, a little awkward, like a team huddle gone spiritual. The incense made my eyes water. A couple guys shifted uncomfortably, but nobody laughed. Then the temperature plummeted. You could see breath fogging in the air. The overhead bulbs dimmed like a brownout, but the generators outside kept chugging steady. No fluctuation on the power. The whispering started, low at first, from the corners, then swelling. Not words anymore. Angry hisses, overlapping, coming from everywhere and nowhere. The racks began to shake, not subtle. Metal frames rattling hard, chains clanking, sea bags sliding off. One rack tipped forward, almost dumping a sleeping bag on the floor. Guys jumped up instinctive, hands reaching for rifles even though we'd stacked them. "Hold fast," the chaplain barked, voice cutting through. He raised his Bible higher, commanded whatever it was to depart in the name of Christ. Ahmed's chanting got louder, faster, almost frantic. He threw more salt toward the shadows, pooling thicker now in the center of the room. Then Private Ellis, quiet kid from weapons platoon, billeted with us temporarily, dropped to his knees. Eyes rolled back white, body convulsing like he was seizing, foam at the corners of his mouth. He started speaking, guttural sounds, not English, maybe Arabic, maybe nothing human. We rushed to hold him down. Hayes and Lee pinned his arms, Morrison his legs. I kept his head from slamming the floor. The chaplain laid hands on him, praying loud, commanding the spirit to release him. The shaking stopped, sudden. The cold lifted. The whispers cut off like someone flipped a switch. Ellis went limp, passed out cold, but breathing steady. Ahmed looked shaken, first time I'd ever seen him rattled. He muttered something about it being strong, old, angry at being disturbed. The chaplain wiped sweat from his brow, told us it was gone, cleansed. We helped Ellis to his rack, let him sleep it off. Next morning he was up early, chipper even, said he felt better than he had in weeks, like a weight lifted. We all did. No cold spots, no whispers that night. Guys slept deep for once. We thought we'd won. We were wrong. 2 nights later, it came back worse. I woke to screaming from the head, grabbed my rifle, ran down the hall with half the bay behind me. Ellis was in the latrine hanging from a belt looped over the shower pipe, feet dangling, face purple. We cut him down fast, started CPR. Doc worked him hard, but he was gone. No pulse, body already cooling. No note, no signs he'd been depressed. Hell, he'd been the most upbeat after the blessing. Official ruling came quick. Suicide due to combat stress. Case closed, but we knew. The thing hadn't left. It had taken one of us. As punishment, or as a warning. After that, nobody talked about blessings or gin anymore. We just counted the days until rotation out, and watched the shadows closer than ever. Chapter 6. The last patrol Lance Corporal Tyler Hayes again. After Ellis, the mood in the platoon hit bottom. Nobody talked much. We moved like zombies. Patrols, chow, rack time, repeat. Command saw the writing on the wall and started prepping us for rotation out. Redeployment orders trickled down. We'd be heading back to Pendleton soon, via Kuwait, for decon and processing. It felt like a lifeline. But before we could pack out, we drew one last mission. Intel picked up chatter about remaining tunnel networks on the outskirts near Bahariya. Small cells still hiding, maybe planning a parting shot at the base. Our company got tasked with clearing a section along the Euphrates. Same battalion, same area we'd fought through weeks earlier. Lieutenant Harlan volunteered us. Or maybe we were just next on the roster. Either way, it was Ramirez's fire team leading the breach again. We kitted up heavy, extra frags, demo charges, NVGs charged, fresh batteries in everything. Nobody said it out loud, but we all felt it. This was unfinished business. We inserted at dusk. Humvees dropping us a click-out, dismounted the rest. The terrain was familiar, dry canals, scattered compounds, half flattened by airstrikes, palm groves casting long shadows. Air smelled of dust and river rot. The target was a farmhouse complex, intel saying it hid an entrance to deeper rat lines. We stacked, breached quiet this time. No flashbangs, suppressors on, cleared the buildings fast, empty but signs of recent use, warm cookfires, fresh trash. Then we found the tunnel mouth, concealed under a false floor in what used to be a stable. Same construction as before, timbered, narrow, sloping down. Ramirez looked at us. Same teams. Hayes Point, Lee on saw, Morrison rear with Doc. We go in, mark anything, blow it, get out. We nodded. No hesitation, or maybe too numb for it. Down we went. The silence hit immediate, total. Like the first tunnel, but heavier. No echoes, no drips, nothing. Just our breathing amplified in the tight space. We moved deeper than before, maybe 70 meters, branching left into a wider section. The air turned colder, damper. Then we found the chamber. It wasn't a cache this time. Bones. Human. scattered across the floor, some chained to iron rings bolted into the rock, skulls cracked, limbs twisted, old, yellowed, brittle, but not ancient. Saddam era maybe, torture site, execution pit. Morrison muttered a curse. Lee swept his light slow, jaw tight. We marked it for Graves registration, planted charges along the supports. That's when the footsteps started again. Soft, padding. Behind us. We spun as one, lights tracking back down the tunnel, empty. Keep moving, Ramirez ordered, voice flat. We finished setting the charges, started exfil. But ahead, deeper in a branch we hadn't cleared, a faint glow appeared. Greenish, steady, not a chem light. Haze on point. Sarge, you seeing that? Roger, slow advance. We crept toward it. The tunnel opened into another small chamber, empty except for walls covered in writing. Scratched deep, frantic. Blood once, now dried black. Our names: Hayes, Ramirez, Lee, Morrison, Ellis. Listed down one wall like a roll call. Then lower, bigger letters: You brought me out. The glow pulsed once, like breathing. Cold hit us hard, breath fogging, skin prickling. Whispers erupted, all around. Names again, faster, layered, laughter underneath. We backed out slow, muzzles up. No one spoke until we hit the surface. We blew the charges from a safe distance. The ground rumbled, dust plumed up, entrance collapsed in on itself. Job done. Back at Bahariya, we packed in silence. Sea bags stuffed, weapons crated, final formations. No more incidents those last days. No whispers, no shadows, no cold spots. We boarded the birds out, CH-46s thumping us to Taqadum, then fixed wing home. I took a window seat on the C-130 out of Iraq, looked down as we climbed. Fallujah shrinking, the Euphrates a brown ribbon, Camp Bahariya a scar in the desert. Then I saw it, on the wing, a shadow, tall, robed, waving slow, like goodbye, or see you soon. Years have passed now. Some guys are okay, married, kids, civilian jobs. Others struggle, nightmares that don't fade. Some checked out early, their own way. We don't talk about it at reunions, not directly, but we know. That last chamber wasn't a warning, it was a promise. Whatever lived in those tunnels, old anger, gin, something worse, we didn't bury it, we carried it out. And for some of us, it never let go. Chapter 7, Echoes That Remain, Sergeant Alex Ramirez. Final thoughts on this. We rotated out of Iraq in early 2005, staged through Kuwait, then flew home to Camp Pendleton. The barracks there were standard, Quonset huts, green linoleum floors, the smell of floor wax and gun oil. Everything familiar, everything American. We thought distance would fix it. Ocean air, stateside chow, no more incoming. We thought we'd left the war, and whatever came with it, behind in the dust. We hadn't. The first few weeks back were debriefs, medical checks, block leave. Guys scattered to families, girlfriends, hometowns. When we reconvened for post-deployment training, the stories started slipping out again. Quiet conversations in the smoke pit. A nod across the chow hall. We didn't need to say much. We knew who'd been in that bay at Dreamland. Morrison got out quick, went home to Oregon. Last I heard, he was working construction, kept to himself. Hayes stayed in a few more years. Made corporal, deployed again, but never to Iraq. Lee went career, picked up staff sergeant stripes, but he avoids talking about Fallujah at all. Me, I did my time, got out as a staff sergeant, started a family. Normal life on the outside. But the echoes stayed. I'd be on night watch during a field op and hear footsteps behind me in the tree line. Turn, nothing. Hayes told me once he still checks mirrors careful, never looks too long. Lee admitted he sleeps with a light on even now. Morrison sent an email years later saying he'd woken up with fresh scratches after dreaming of that tunnel. Ellis's death stuck hardest. Official record says suicide. His family accepted it. Combat stress, unseen wounds. We never told them different. What could we say? That we thought something followed us home and took him as payment. Over the years, we've had a few reunions. Small ones, barbecues, no big ceremonies. We toast the fallen, share photos of kids, talk about jobs. But eventually, after a few beers, the conversation drifts there. The silence in the tunnels, the names whispered in the dark, the figure in the mirrors, the writing on the wall. You brought me out. We don't have answers. Some lean toward gin, something ancient the locals warned about, disturbed by all the digging and fighting. Others figure mass delusion, group PTSD amplified by exhaustion and fear. A few turned harder to faith. Church every Sunday, crosses tattooed where they can see them. Me? I don't know. Combat changes you, breaks parts, rewires others. You see things in war that don't fit neat explanations. Most you bury and move on. But when 10 Marines, hard men, trained to face death without blinking, tell the same story, down to the details, you have to wonder, was it something evil that lived in those tunnels long before we got there? Fed by Saddam's torture chambers, the blood soaked into the ground for decades. Did the insurgency wake it? Or did we, invaders in a land that's seen conquerors come and go for millennia, disturb something that was never meant to see daylight? Or was it just us? Our own fear made manifest, projected into shadows and whispers because the mind can only take so much. I don't have proof. No photos, no recordings, just testimonies from men I'd trust with my life, and the knowledge that whatever it was, it marked us. Some scars you can see, others wait in the dark. Years on, I still check the back seat of my truck at night, still pause before entering an empty room, still feel sometimes that cold draft on the back of my neck. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it followed us all the way home. And maybe somewhere out there in another war, another tunnel, it's waiting for the next platoon to bring it out again. We were Marines. We did our job. But some things you don't leave behind. They leave with you.